And this is a question that my mom actually asked me. You know, as I went over to my folks' place, I watched the debate. We set up the debate on a theater screen out back that I got set up. You know, I love politics. This was like, you know, I mean, I've been looking forward to this for weeks. And she asked me a question. She was like, you know, just after watching that chaotic 90-minute just brawl, she wants to know, are we ever going to go back to normal? You know, are we ever just going to like push past this chaos that we've been living in for the last 4 years? Are we ever just going to go back to how things were? And honestly, the answer is probably no, whether Joe Biden wins or not. So the debate shows that, you know, a candidate can agree to all these rules, all this stuff, and then he just gets on the stage and does whatever he wants. And Trump, by and large, has proven that there's a lot of things in our political system that have been, you know, political norms, right? Norms to release your tax returns, norms to not interfere in different, you know, parts of the Department of Justice. These things are norms to not mess with the political process, so things don't look like you're messing with the political process, right? But a lot of these things that we've come to realize, things that seemed, you know, ingrained in our government and ingrained in just how we do business as America, and it's been revealed that a lot of these things aren't actually laws; they're just what people would normally do. And you know, Trump has just been able to tear through those institutions. And it's a question of, can we ever get the genie back in the bottle? Because whether you like Trump or not, you know, there are millions upon millions of people that support him. In the 2016 election, he got, of course, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote then, but only by 3 million. The rest of Americans voted for Trump. And those people have a very, very loud voice. And they showed that when they actually destroyed one of America's most treasured institutions.
Dancing the salsa with his partner Lindsay, it's Sean Spicer.
I do love that song. Spice up your life, spice up your life. Yeah, okay, so I'm not a huge fan of Dancing with the Stars. I have been forced to watch a couple episodes. I'll admit I did enjoy them. They were good, but it's just not my thing, you know? Anyone that knows me knows I can't dance, so a whole show based on, you know, people who trying to learn how to dance, and Sean Spicer there, whether you like him or not, he cannot dance. But he made it pretty far in that show. And the reason why is because they vote to see who's going to make it to the next round, and Sean Spicer made it political, and Trump's base just kept out voting and voting and voting, and he made it pretty far in that competition. And while that's obviously a silly example, it just shows that Trump's base is huge, right? I mean, there are millions of people who will just, you know, have seen everything he's done, right? They've seen him say all these things, they've seen him do horrible things, and they're just not getting away from him, you know? No matter what it is, you know, they're not going away. And so the idea that they're just going to, you know, Trump or Biden wins and they're just going to fade off in the distance just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? You know, Trump right now is the Republican Party. And another clip I think that really kind of sums this up is this from even before he became president.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't.
What I say is what I say. And honestly, Megyn, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you, although I could probably maybe not be based on the way you have treated me.
And he was not nice to her, even after that debate. So Megyn Kelly, as people have kind of forgotten now, was the shining star of Fox News. I mean, the network had always been attacked as, sexist. Obviously Roger Ailes had to leave, for instance. And yeah, they have not been known as a kind place to women. And this goes in addition to all their crazy conservative stuff. But Megyn Kelly was kind of like a shining star at the network, right? I mean, she was one of their top anchors, if not the top anchor. And it kind of showed to everyone, hey, you might think we're sexist to Fox News. You might think all these things, but look at Megyn Kelly, right? She is our shining star. And after that back and forth with Trump, things were never the same for her, right? She went from, being a major anchor at this network to leaving and basically, being kicked off air. Even after that incident, I think she took a planned vacation. Because the thing is, and everyone kind of thought at that time, it was early on in the election, and everyone kind of thought at that time that, okay, this isn't the Republican Party, right? They thought that, okay, the establishment's still in charge here, and, Fox News is leading the way. But after this incident, even Fox News realized, Trump is in charge here. The conservative, Fox News could tell, Trump supporters or tell the Republicans, hey, the conservative base, they could say all these things to defend Megyn Kelly. But by and large, it was the base coming after Fox News because they're with Trump, no matter what. And speaking of Fox News, you saw all those folks on CNN, MSNBC, all the other networks talking about how horrible this debate was. But let's take a look at the other side.
And I have to note this. I think Trump was very strong on several points.
The extremely weak, the frail, the confused, kind of angry Joe Biden just got steamrolled by President Trump.
Trump crushed him on the rewatch. He wasn't as rude as a lot of people were saying.
Wasn't as rude as a lot of people were saying. I mean, you really gotta, it's kind of funny that comment there because he's recognizing, okay, he was rude, but he wasn't as rude as people were saying, right? You got to recognize that there is a whole half of the country that is listening to a completely and totally different outlook on America. Even that, right? It's one of those things Trump obviously is attacking Biden. He's just going off, right? I don't think you can watch that election and think Trump wasn't going off. But on Fox News, they're like, oh, he was just responding to Biden. He was just responding. It was a normal debate, And, the fact that there's just so much different there and something that we all watch and one half of the country is just eating this stuff up makes the idea that we can get the genie back in the bottle, a little difficult. But there are some things Democrats could do to change this if they get to power, and if they win not only the presidency but the Senate by a wide margin. They could make some very big structural changes. The problem is they can't. Or the problem is they probably won't. And the first thing I think that they should probably do or look at is getting rid of the Electoral College. I want you to take a look at something. So this is a political map of the 2012 presidential election. Excuse me. This is back when Mitt Romney was running. And that's how the country looked. And Barack Obama had a definitive win over Mitt Romney back then. And as I was trying to look up a presidential election, here's the 2016 presidential election. And again, you can look at it. So let me pull this up. As you can see, you look at this and you think, wow, this is a Republican country. This is conservative country. Look at all that red on this map, right? And it's funny, I live here in Austin, and there's a tiny little blue dot in the middle of Texas. But look at all this, right? You look at this and man, this is a conservative country. The thing is, and the thing about this map here is that, it's not just it's not states vote. It's not land voting, right? It's people voting. And so you look at a lot of these states, right? You look at Oklahoma here. You look at Michigan, Ohio, North Dakota, South Dakota. Look at all these places, right? They're definitively red. But as you look over here to see this solidly blue, you see the solidly blue there? I can zoom in on it a little bit for you in California. That's Los Angeles. And Los Angeles' population is bigger than a lot of these red states. And again, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote in that election by 3 million votes. And so what this tells you about the Electoral College is yes, that it's making sure that, smaller population centers are represented. But the problem with that is that, I don't think the Founding Fathers ever anticipated to the amount that people would move to cities. You got to think back then when they wrote the Constitution. The main industry in the United States was agriculture. So the idea that we would have there wasn't a whole lot of work from home back then, right? They didn't have online jobs they could do. And so I don't think they anticipated the kind of population shifts that we would have. And I think they anticipated that, one vote in California would be, one vote in like North Dakota or South Dakota would be worth like 8 votes in California, right? That probably was not something that they saw coming. In fact, when you look at the 2016 election, one of the states where President Trump actually got the most votes was California, just because of the population in California. A lot of these smaller states he won, were still less than his actual vote total in California. And so it shows, this system is very, very outdated. Another problem with this system is that each state gets 2 senators. And so again, California, with 40 million people, gets the same number of representation and essentially the same political power as North and South Dakota. And so 40 million people have a much smaller voice than 80,000 people. And that plays out in something like the Senate, where, if Democrats want to actually control the Senate, they have to win in some of these very smaller conservative states. And so it's like, it makes it harder for them to, change how the country's going because they just don't have the political power. And the problem with that is that, the will of the people is not being represented. I mean, I've seen things that Democrats make up like 47% of the country. 47% of the country, follows Democrats. And I think, Republicans or conservatives are maybe like 30%, 35%, something like that. But the minority is able to control the government, control the direction of the country because of things like the Electoral College and how we divide senators. And so, again, we could change that senator thing by adding, D.C. and make D.C. a state, making Puerto Rico a state. But so far, the Democrats haven't been willing to do that. And another sign that that we are not going back to normal and that things are, crazy, I might stay crazy for a long time, is stuff like this. This is a QAnon supporter who's been denounced for racism, winning a Georgia Republican primary. Now, because this primary was in Georgia, she has a very good chance of actually being elected. And so a QAnon supporter could soon be a member of Congress. And she has been accused for doing things or saying things like complaining of a Islamic invasion into the United States, claiming Black and Hispanic men are held back by gangs and dealing drugs, and pushing an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that the billionaire philanthropist George Soros, who is Jewish, saying that he collaborated with the Nazis. Yes, this is the future of the Republican Party. And you got to question what the future is. So Trump, I do think he's smarter than people give him credit for. I think, it's kind of, you're doing yourself a little bit of a disservice to think he's just so stupid, even though he says a lot of stupid things. But the idea here is that what's after Trump, right? Who's the next person to take over that mantle? And they might not be quite the buffoon that Trump comes off as, right? I mean, some of Trump's antics, even though they've been a distraction, haven't always worked out best for him. One of my favorite lines from the debate was when Biden asked if Trump was gonna try some disinfectant or inject some disinfectant. It's probably too early to make this joke, but I'm hoping he doesn't. Someone needs to take all the disinfectant out of the White House to make sure he doesn't go after that, because that could be bad. But the question is, what happens after Trump, right? Like, who's next? And whoever's next might be more competent than the last guy.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for watching Citizen Pete. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, click that little subscribe button, maybe the like button, and hey, maybe just leave a comment. I want to know what you're thinking. What do you think about all the politics and news and all the stuff that's going on in our country?